We are thrilled to be with you and so grateful that you are joining us for our first Zoom presentation of the 2022 year. We trust that you all had a nice holiday and have come back refreshed and have hit the ground running as we've started the new year. We have a number of program updates today. You'll be hearing from our team members, and just really excited and grateful that you would take an hour and a half out of your busy schedules to be with us today. My name is Kelly Kravitz, and I have the high honor of being the director of our Highly Mobile and At-Risk Student Programs Division. And just a little bit about who we are and our mission in special populations is that we equip school systems to increase awareness, to promote equitable access, and improve outcomes for all special student populations. So just really quickly, who we are and what we do. We are specifically focused on highly mobile and at-risk groups, including military-connected students, homeless children and youth through our Texas Education for Homeless Children and Youth program, child abuse and neglect, which includes human trafficking prevention, collaborative work that we're doing in that space, pregnancy-related services, as well as foster care and student success. And then we do represent our agency with at-risk stakeholder and state level activities. So as we get started in today's presentation, the point of these webinars is to provide you practical and actionable information regarding the different students that we serve. So we're going to start out today by talking about pregnancy-related services. We're then going to have updates from our military-connected program, where they're going to have specific McKinney-Vento updates. Then you're going to hear about foster care, and then we have some general at-risk reminders and information. But before we get started, I want to introduce you to my incredible team. So I'd like to go ahead and have Cal Lopez introduce herself to the group.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Cal Lopez, and I am the Texas Education for Homeless Children and Youth State Coordinator.
Great. Thanks so much, Cal. Jordan, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jordan Brown. I'm the Special Projects Coordinator for the division. I oversee the Military Connected Student Program, and I also support the division in general.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jordan. Latrenda, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Latrenda Watson. I'm the At-Risk State Coordinator. I help oversee the foster care and student success, our pregnancy-related services, and our at-risk programs.
Awesome. Thanks, Latrenda. And lastly, we're joined with a special guest today, Christina Page. Please go ahead and introduce yourself to the group. Oh, you're muted, Christina.
I'm sorry. My name is Christina Page. I'm with the Division of Financial Compliance. I am an attendance specialist. So we are the ones that hand out the desk audits, and we look at all the documentation for funding purposes. So I am here to answer all your questions later on.
Great. Thanks so much, Christina. We're really grateful that you're here joining us today. Christina has a wealth of expertise in the PRS area and will be available for your questions. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Jordan, who's going to provide us some housekeeping information before we get started. Thank you.
Okay, hello everyone. So just a couple of things to note before we start the presentation. If you have any questions today, please submit them to the Q&A function in Zoom webinar. So previously we were using an alternative website, so now we're actually using the Zoom Q&A function. So go ahead and submit those questions. Once they're answered, people will be able to see them. So you'll see any responded to questions in the answered column there. You can also send a chat to us, but that won't be visible to everyone else in the room. It'll just be something that we can see. So if you have any comments, you can put them there, but we please ask you to put everything in the question and answer if you have a question. I'm putting in the resource document in the chat right now. So click on that link and that'll give you access to all of the resources that we are discussing today. Again, this presentation will be recorded and posted to the Highly Mobile and At-Risk webpage. So we have a special webinars page that we will post everything from this presentation on. If there are any follow-up questions that we don't get to today from the audience, we'll post those there as well, along with the slides, the recording, and the let's see what else. The resource list is there as well. So yeah, I think that's everything there. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to LaTrenda to talk about pregnancy-related services.
Good afternoon, everybody. Once again, we want to thank you for coming, and now we will talk about pregnancy-related services updates. So as we spoke about in our last webinar, we wanted to make sure to inform you of this. This is the new FAQ for PRS that was released on November 2021. And within this FAQ, it covers PRS remote instruction eligibility, Senate Bill 15, and also compensatory home instruction and remote instruction as it relates to CHI. So we want to make sure that any questions that you have and that you have given us so far, we have related in this FAQ. So please go to our website to where we have this listed. Now we wanted to also remind you about these great resources for PRS. Our Student Attendance Accounting Handbook, Section 9, speaks about all the rules for operation for PRS program. For anything that requires any program guidance, please go to the Student Attendance Accounting Handbook, Section 9, and it relates to everything for PRS. Also, compensatory education home instruction. It is mandatory support service component districts must offer if you offer PRS program. Compensatory education home instruction provides academic services to the student at home or hospital bedside when a valid medical necessity for confinement during the pregnancy, prenatal, and postnatal periods prevents the student from attending classes on a district campus. So we want to make sure that you know all of these resources and that you have these resources at your fingertips on our website. Next, I also wanted to let you know about Senate Bill 15 and the FAQs for that. So local education agencies must receive full ADA funding for students who attend local remote learning programs at any point during the 2021-2022 school year if that remote instruction meets the requirements set forth by Senate Bill 15. So any questions regarding that and providing local remote learning programs, please look at Senate Bill 15 FAQ. Also, for state waivers, this waiver allows districts and charter schools to request a waiver to offer pregnancy-related services, compensatory education home instruction on a district's campus. Special education students who qualify for pregnancy-related services may also receive homebound instruction on campus if the district has an approved on-campus instruction waiver. The waiver is not required for students receiving full day instruction in a remote setting. So we want to show you where those state waivers are housed and information about those state waivers. So please look on our website for more information regarding this. Now I will turn it over to Christina Page to speak more about PRS.
Hello, thank you. Right now, PRS, comp at home instruction, is required to be done in person. However, there are virtual funding options if this is necessary. So first, I'm going to kind of discuss and go over the requirements for remote conferencing. So most of the time, remote conferencing is usually for students or family members of the household that are COVID positive or have tested COVID positive within the household. It allows for 20 days of remote instruction provided synchronously for 4 hours every school day with attendance taken at an official snapshot time. So in order to do this, they must have a doctor's note. And this 20 days there's no waiver required for the first 20 days. And understand also that these 20 days is cumulative. So it's when it begins, you have 20 days. So if a student is absent, that's still an allowable day of the 20 days that it's allowed. So you must have a doctor's note, and if it needs to extend beyond that, you may request an other waiver with a doctor's note to extend. So you can get another 20 days possibly, and this waiver can be extended if there is an issue with the newborn and not just with the mother. And understand on this waiver, fear of COVID is not going to be a medical reason that will make this waiver allowable. So there must be a medical complication or reason for this. I'm going to kind of pause right here before I go on to see if there's any questions about remote conferencing. And note that there is a specific FAQ on this on the website.
We actually do have a question. Is there specific protocol for Texas Virtual School Network full-time schools to follow? They said they're a full-time online campus and they don't have a physical campus and they serve students across the state.
Okay, that's a great question. Texas Virtual School is a great program given the situation and the climate of COVID. Texas Virtual School is not funded by regular ADA. They are funded by course completion. So they don't have to follow the rules of snapshot time or attendance. They are funded by course completion. So I suggest if you have a remote, like through Texas Virtual School, you go with their information and ask those questions with that department. That's a great question. Any other questions before I go on?
Yeah, we have a couple. Should the parents make the remote conferencing request for the district to provide this service?
For remote conferencing, that can be done in any way, whether it's a written note from a parent saying that the student or a family member has tested positive or whatever the medical reason is that that student cannot be served in person. That can be done via email or physical note. And because that 20 days does not require a waiver, it is kind of up to the district on the policies that they're going to put around that. But they must have a doctor's note.
We have another question. So does the student and or family member must be COVID positive to be allowed the waiver? It's not specified for only COVID. That's just the majority of the reason why this was kind of put out there. The student could have a really bad case of the flu. There could be other reasons for a need for remote conferencing, but that is the main reason. So it has to be a medical, and like I said, I suggest you go back and look at the remote conferencing to get the details, but it's a medical reason for that. And understand too that this only applies to districts that are doing any kind of virtual. So you need to check with your district to see if they're going to even offer a virtual program. And if it does, every virtual program falls under the 10%. So no more than 10% can be served through any virtual platform. So make sure you read through and check with your district administrators to see what kind of programs you're even offering. And yes, it is 4 hours. This remote conferencing is 4 hours synchronous every school day. So it's not 4 hours a week, it's 4 hours every day, and attendance is taken at a snapshot time. We're getting a couple more questions, but I think let's go through
and
maybe finish out and then we can go back and answer.
Okay, so next I'm going to discuss the virtual instruction through Senate Bill 15. So first, once again, make sure you check with your district to see if you're offering a virtual program. And through Senate Bill 15, an LEA must first qualify. Did they meet the criteria? Were they satisfactory last year? And then if so, is the student that you're wanting to serve, do they meet the criteria? So like they had to have served or scored satisfactory on last year's STAR test. And then they can be served daily through a synchronous or an asynchronous plan. So if you want to offer an asynchronous plan, you have to have board approval, and this plan must be posted on the district webpage. So make sure you please read through all the eligibility criteria, and then you may serve this student through Senate Bill 15. So once again, every student served the majority of their instruction time through a remote method counts toward the LEA's 10% cap. If a student has more than 10 absences, then they will no longer be eligible for ADA funding through a virtual method. They would be counted ADA code 9 until they physically return to campus. So that's through Senate Bill 15. Do we have any questions before I move on to the next one? Okay.
Yeah, we have a couple, but I think maybe we should wait until the end so that we can
Okay.
kind of consolidate them all together, just in case there's more info.
Okay. So the last one is remote homebound instruction. So remote homebound instruction, it is SAW 12.3.3. It is where 4 hours equal 1 week. It requires an approved waiver. So you can't serve comp at home instruction how you normally with 1 hour equals 1 day kind of thing in a virtual method unless you have an approved waiver. The student must be experiencing prenatal or postpartum complication and receive a doctor's note for remote PRS stating a medical reason why they cannot be served by in-person comp at home instruction. So this has to be very severe, and they must meet the eligibility criteria in 12.3.3 of the SAW to qualify as medically fragile. And also note that this eligibility can be extended to the student if their newborn qualifies as medically fragile. So in order to do this, you must submit another waiver and be approved before you can provide remote homebound instruction to a student. So, and for more information on submitting a waiver for remote homebound, see the state waivers guidebook on page 28. So this is actually a lot more difficult to do. And once again, any of the notes, you must state why that student cannot be served in person. Do we have any questions?
Yes, okay. So one question, is a doctor's note always required or is a school nurse note adequate?
A doctor's note is always required for any of these virtual options, and a school nurse does not qualify as a licensed medical practitioner. So it must come from a doctor.
Can remote conferencing be offered for CHI if the student or newborn have COVID or have been exposed to COVID?
So my recommendation is yes, you can start them and they get the 20 days without a waiver. And then you can apply to get a waiver to extend this remote conferencing for the amount of time, but understand that that has to be done 4 hours every single day, synchronously. And their attendance has to be taken at official attendance time.
If this is for a SPED student, are all 6 hours eligible for the remote learning as described here?
So if this is for a SPED student or a SPED PRS student, is that what we're implying?
Probably, yeah.
Okay, so everything would have to be done exactly the same way, but you would have to have a certified special ed teacher do it, and there would be, it depends on which one you're doing. If you're wanting a remote homebound, you would have to have the 6 hours. If you're trying to do remote conferencing, then that period of time, they need to follow their ARD committee, and they would have to do another ARD, and the ARD committee would have to meet and decide the best needs for that student.
Okay. Must the doctor be licensed in Texas or is license in the US sufficient?
That's a great question. So, and this is also in PRS information that what a licensed medical practitioner, it is someone licensed to practice medicine. So an advanced nurse practitioner, not just an RN. So they have to be able to diagnose and or prescribe medication. So and also a midwife usually has the ability to do some stuff for PRS. But as far as in the US, as long as they meet that criteria of a medical practitioner, that should suffice.
If the newborn is medically fragile, can this apply to either or both of the parents?
PRS is only for the mother. So it could not, like, if we're talking about remote conferencing, the father could get the 20 days if they're all in the same household, if they all live together, that the father would qualify for that. But as far as remote homebound instruction for PRS, the father would not be eligible. But if the newborn is medically fragile, then you need to go ahead and send that waiver application over to be approved, and go from there.
Another question for the remote virtual instruction, can it be case by case to ask for a waiver? For example, if a student's baby has to have heart surgery and will be in the NICU after delivery.
They're all case by case because it's per student. You don't just get a waiver for the entire district. So it is a waiver per each student. So it would be case by case.
Does a psychologist count as an MD for general homebound?
If this is general homebound, then are we talking about a pregnant student?
That's a good question.
If your question is referring to can a student get virtual homebound due to a psychological issue, that does not qualify the student as medically fragile. That does not state any kind of medical reason why the student can't be served in person. So that would not be, even if you try to get a waiver for that, that would not be approved.
Okay, great. What type of doctor's note do you need, or what information is needed for the student's newborn? And only applies to the newborn. It's a bit of a typo there, I'm not sure. What type of doctor's note or information do you need for the newborn?
Why they are classified as medically fragile. And I suggest you go to the FAQ that Jordan and LaTrinda had mentioned and they have talked about before, because it gives the extensive definition of medically fragile. And we would need a doctor's note stating, like, there was one that we got that the baby had eye problems and had to travel to get specific kind of surgery in another city for a pediatric eye surgeon. And this baby was medically fragile. So that it has to be a very unique situation to be approved in that way.
When providing remote homebound instruction, is it 4 hours per day or 4 hours per week?
Okay, so remote homebound is 4 hours equals 1 week, just like regular comp at home instruction. However, this is also, you have to have an approved waiver. The student or baby has to be medically fragile. So this is difficult to get, and you must get the waiver before you try to do this. However, remote conferencing is 4 hours daily.
In the instance of remote homebound instruction, who would be the service provider, and does it need to be a certified teacher?
Yes, anybody giving is the instruction, just like comp at home instruction, they would be able to do the virtual if you had an approved waiver to do remote homebound. If the student is special ed, the 4 hours must be done by a certified special ed teacher.
If a C-high student is in special ed but receives most of their instruction in the general education setting, do they need to be instructed by both special ed and the general ed teacher?
This would be determined, this needs to be determined by the ARD committee, but in the case of comp at home instruction for a pregnant student, the same rules apply just like anyone else. If the student's special ed, 4 hours must be done by a certified special ed teacher, an additional 2 by a regular teacher, or that certified special education teacher may do the full 6 hours.
We got another general question. I think this came up whenever we were talking about remote conferencing. What would this look like from the teacher's point of view?
For remote conferencing?
Mm-hmm.
So if a district is going to do a remote program and they are going to do remote conferencing, they must have teachers doing this without not being in a classroom, meaning that teacher cannot be teaching a live class physically at the school campus at the same time. So you could theoretically hire teachers specifically to teach multiple students. One teacher can teach multiple virtual students, but the teacher cannot also be teaching a classroom at the same time.
Would a student that has had a miscarriage and is suffering from psychological distress qualify for remote homebound instruction?
They would be, just regular comp at home instruction. That does not give a medical reason why that student cannot be served in person. So that is just the question I keep pushing for everyone to ask themselves when they're presented with this. Why can't this student be served in person? And you kind of go from there. If you can't give a medical reason and have a doctor's note stating why that student can't be served in person, then they need to be served in person.
Okay, I think that'll be all for the questions for PRS. If we didn't get to your question, we'll follow up with you after.
My email will be in there. Feel free to email me and I will answer any further questions. Thank you.
So what we want to do now is provide you with a couple of parenting resources. All of these resources are currently on our website. Jordan has also provided you with the resource page. So I'm just going to glance over a couple of these right quick. The parents as teachers promotes the optimal early development, learning, and health of children by supporting and engaging their parents and caregivers. And we want you to provide your students that you're working with through PRS this information that will guide them through their process. And we want to provide you with all the resources that we have. And on our next, we're going to pause right now. We wanted to provide you with Christina's information. We are thankful for all your questions that you're providing today, but remember, we also do have a PRS email where you can email these personal questions from your campuses, any situations that you may have. You can email them to us. Here's Christina's contact information. My contact information will be provided again also. So please make sure you email us these questions, and then these questions will help us provide more FAQs for everyone. So now we'll move on to Jordan for Military Connected Student Programs.
Thanks, Latrenda. Okay, so just wanted to provide you some updates and information about our military connected student programs. The first thing I wanted to have us look at today was our military connected student population by region. And if you take a look at this, you'll see that this covers 2 years of student identification from PEAMS. So the orange bar is last school year, so the 2021 school year. And then the blue bar that's overlaid on top is the 1920 school year. So this gives us a little bit of comparison data. We can look at it visually to see that we've had a really big increase in some of our regions in military connected student identification, which is really awesome. So shout out to you guys, all of those regions, region 4, 10, 11, 12, 13, 20. There are some other increases that are not quite as big, but definitely still important. So this is definitely really awesome information to see. And we plan to do a little bit more analysis as to how this aligns with enrollment. But for right now, if we go to the next slide, I wanted to show you where we're seeing that really big increase and why that's happening, because that was really an exponential increase that we saw. And there were 2 new identifiers that were added a couple years ago for PEAMS, and that was military connected students who are dependents of active duty members who have fallen in the line of duty, and also dependents of veterans. So, and that's where we've seen the 2 biggest increases in identification in the last year. So you can see I've indicated with little symbols there. Our veteran connected population was the biggest increase. It was a huge jump that we saw. So thank you to everyone who worked to identify our veteran connected students and our students who are dependents of soldiers who have fallen in the line of duty. And also our National Guard, Texas National Guard students increase in identification, so that's awesome as well. In our other 3 identification areas, we saw that there was a little bit of a decrease, but Again, that might align with our decrease in enrollment overall, so it's not something that we're super worried about, but that will come with later analysis later down the line. So we've gotten a couple of questions about these two new identifiers that we've added. And, why is it important to identify students students of veterans and dependents of soldiers fallen in the line of duty? And there are a couple of reasons. There are definitely a lot of specific difficulties and experiences that these families experience in their time in the military. And for one, when we look at our veteran connected population, they definitely experience many unique hardships in relation to the transition from military to civilian life. And they also have access to a lot of family services available to them. So that's definitely something that you can look into connecting with them. For example, we know that children of veterans who have PTSD can also experience social and behavioral problems, emotional problems, and sometimes they even experience secondary traumatization related to their parents who have PTSD. So it's definitely important to look out for these students and support their well-being in order to ensure their academic success down the line. Along with that, dependents of fallen veterans may be grieving their fallen family member, and you never know. I mean, that situation could definitely have an impact on their school performance. So that's definitely something to look out for as well. Also, these students and their families have access to many different scholarships, counseling resources, support programs. That's definitely something that you can link your students and their families to. So I wanted to provide a couple of examples of where you can go to provide additional supports for these families. One of these is the Texas Veterans Portal. So as you can see, this is specific to Texas, so it's really awesome. They have so many different resources and places, like just a quick access portal that you can find information for. And I wanted to point to specifically the education and training sections and the dependent and caregiver section. So this is probably where you'll want to focus with school if you're an education staff. So this is a really awesome resource to either use whenever you're supporting families or provide to families to find their own supports. There's also, what's really cool is that they have a comprehensive list of scholarships available to veterans and also surviving family members. So that's definitely something for you to look at. I think I included that. Oh, no, I did not. Well, you can find it on that webpage as well. Two really great scholarships that I wanted to call out for dependents of fallen service members are the Fry Scholarship and the Survivors and Dependents Educational Assistance, also known as the DEA program, also known as Chapter 35. So these are two U.S. government scholarships of federal aid for these students. So the Fry Scholarship provides tuition for in-state. They cover tuition costs. They provide money for housing, money for books and supplies. And then the DEA program provides a variety of funding for different courses. So it also focuses on career training, certificate courses, education and career counseling, apprenticeships, and on-the-job training. So this is definitely a great option for some students. So what's important to note is that if a student decides to get one of these scholarships, they can only utilize one of these programs. So if you are providing this information, that's definitely something to note. So I added the link there that you can go to, and it's also in our resource page for you to access as well. One other great organization that I wanted to point out, along with the myriad of other organizations that provide support to students of fallen veterans, is the Children of Fallen Patriots Foundation. And their main purpose is to provide college scholarships and educational counseling to military children who have lost a parent in the line of duty. And it aims to meet the gaps where like federal scholarships, like the ones that I mentioned in the last slide, may not, cover every single thing that's provided. So it's definitely a great way to sort of fill the gaps there. Also, it has a lot of great resources for family and student support. So I've taken a screenshot of their specific resources page. So this is a great information hub. So they have a family support page, a kids camps page, which I thought was really awesome. So if you're looking to support, younger kids, you can definitely provide, some camp options for them during the summer. Also educational resources and additional scholarships and grants. So again, this is one of the many organizations that support families going through these issues. And also some other ones that I wanted to call out really quickly are the Tragedy Assistance Program for Survivors, also known as TAPS, the CAM Posse Memorial Scholarship Fund, the Folds of Honor Foundation, and the Military Officers Association of America. So there are many organizations out there, so definitely we plan to update our webpage and have all of these resources available to you to support your families. Okay, I want to transition now into the Purple Star campus designation updates. So we are accepting applications this spring. We have 161 total campuses in Texas, and so that's awesome, and we're looking to add more to our list. So definitely consider applying. We have a webpage that'll tell you everything you need to know about becoming a Purple Star campus. So we provided feedback to the schools that did not receive the designation in the 21-22 school year. So we encourage you to really use that feedback to reapply this year, build up your application, and we really hope to see you on the designee list this year. Again, can we go back to the other slide? So schools that receive the designation for the 2021 school year need to reapply this spring. We'll be reaching out to the military liaisons and other contacts in those schools to make sure that you have all the information you need to reapply. And then lastly, if you aren't already signed up for to the administrator address emails, that's the TAA emails, please do so, because that's where we make our big announcement for when the Purple Star application period is going to happen this year. So you'll get the specific dates via that newsletter. So I put a QR code here if you want to go ahead and sign up for it there. You can also sign up for it on the TAA webpage on the TEA website. Okay. Lastly, I wanted to give you an update on the Purple Star application. So it will be looking a little bit different this year. I'm updating all of the questions. So some of the questions that are being changed, we're including some more we're asking for more specific information about your campus military liaison. We're going to ask for specific written narratives of your activities that you provide to your students. So your military initiative activity, and also your student transition program. So we want to hear more about, how you're serving your students. And also just in general, how, we want you to be able to describe how your services improve the school experience of military connected students. So we can get a really clear idea of, how your school is doing really good work for our students. Also, we're going to have a very clear list of acceptable types of evidence. So we're going to get more specific on that. It'll generally be the same, but it'll just be clear on what we're looking for. And in the same lines of that, we'll also be having a scoring rubric. So we'll, kind of provide you with the information that we're looking for when we're scoring an application and how that works. So whenever you're filling out your application, you can review that information while you're doing that and kind of grade yourself as you go along. So we hope this is helpful to you. That'll be all updated on our Purple Star webpage, and we'll send out an announcement when all that information is out. So definitely sign up for the Military Connected Student newsletter to get that information. Okay, so we can go into questions if we have time. What exactly does military connectedness do for a district? I'm not sure what you mean by that, but if we're talking about identifying students, it's definitely important to identify your students who are military connected, because they definitely face a lot of unique challenges in regards to transition, in regards to coming to a new location just in general. It's important to support your families and also stay connected to the military installation if you have one nearby your campus, so that you can align your mission and goals with their mission and goals. For military connected students, do we re-identify each year or do we carry over each year? No, you'll add the military student identifier in your enrollment packet. So that'll be, you identify your students at enrollment. Okay, let's see. What were the two new connections? So the two new connections were students of soldiers who have fallen in the line of duty and students of former military personnel, so students of veterans. What does pre-K stand for? So the pre-K has a specific qualifier that's a little bit different than the K through 12 qualifiers. I don't have the information right in front of me, but if you go to our webpage, you can find our one-pager that covers all of the military student identifier, and I can link it in the chat once I've finished going over the questions. Okay, I got a question about the number 5, if the wording can be changed from former to veteran, because in the coding it says students of former military service members instead of veteran members, and I can see how that could be confusing. I'm not sure what the process is for changing that information, but we can definitely take a look at what's possible. You will receive a copy of the presentation, and also the resource links are provided on the resources page that I linked in the chat. So if you go there, it'll have all of the information right now before the presentation is posted. When are we getting the new modified application for the Purple Star Campus designation? There isn't a set date yet. It's still in development, but it will definitely be done before this year's application period. Is Purple Star Campus just for high schools or for all levels? It's for all levels. So yeah, elementary school, middle school, high school, all of our students have transition challenges, so definitely all levels. Is there a certain form to identify a military student? So that would be something, again, that you include in your enrollment packet. So again, I'll link that military student identifier resource, and it has all of the questions that you need to include there. And so that'll make it super easy for you. Will there be a training for the application Purple Star Campus designation? That's something that we did do last year. I'm not certain if it's going to be something that we do again this year, but with the new application, you know, that definitely makes sense. So we can definitely look into having an information session and provide you more info on how that's going to look. Okay, I think that's all the questions. And if I didn't answer anything, I will definitely include it in the Q&A as we follow up from this webinar. So I'm going to turn it over to Cal to talk about McKinney-Vento updates.
Thank you, Jordan. So we're going to go ahead in the next over the section cover some McKinney-Vento updates. So on the first slide of this section, we're going to go ahead and see, we wanted to share with you today our students experiencing homelessness data for the 2021 school year broken down by region. And so this is kind of just a snapshot of this information. We are closely working with our 20 regional McKinney-Vento liaisons in reviewing data and developing a data-driven plan to support all our LEAs across the state. And so we have already provided 3 years of historical data to our regional McKinney-Vento liaisons, and we are in the process of providing them a report with this 2021 information specific to region. It would provide the total enrollment of every LEA in each region, along with the total number of students identified as experiencing homelessness. So we just kind of wanted to share this as an example of how you could utilize this data. So on a regional level, right? They could share this information of enrollment by LEA, by school district. But if you're a school district, you could look at the past 3 or 4 years to see if you have any identification trends. You could also utilize similar data to look at attendance, promotion, and graduation rates. And we wanted to really talk about this briefly because many of you have reached out that due to the impact of COVID, you have seen a decline in attendance, in promotion, and engagement. And so we just kind of wanted to share this information with you today and let you know that we will be working closely with our regional McKinney-Vento liaisons, and they will be receiving a much more detailed report to ensure that they can provide additional technical assistance and professional development to the LEAs within their region. Here on this next slide, we're going to go ahead and provide some quick updates regarding the American Rescue Plan Homeless Children and Youth Phase 1 of grant funds. And so you have seen this slide previously. Phase 1, we received a little over $20 million. And we have already moved forward with releasing these grants and also awarding these funds. So on this next slide is kind of a summary for the statewide allocation. So we did allocate 82% of our funds, which went above and beyond the minimum requirement of 75% that USDE had requested. So our new 21-22 TECHI subgrantees, as you can see on this chart, were eligible for the 2021 ARP Homeless 1 TECHI supplemental grant. So this grant is due on February 16th. And this is a funding source from the American Rescue Plan. So our 92 new subgrantees are eligible for this grant program. And we have extended the deadline, the original deadline, for those of you who are still following up on their email. We did send a notification that we have extended the due date from Wednesday, February 2nd to Wednesday, February 16th. Next slide, please. Here on this next slide is a side-by-side comparison of the funding source, the grant purpose, the funding cycle. So we did want to highlight that in purple is the ARP supplemental grant. This is a one-time application, a one-time NOGA, and the funding cycle is as of September 1st, 2021, if the subgrantee requests pre-award costs till 8/30/2024. Next slide, please. So this is a quick snapshot of the purpose of the supplemental grant, and it's to provide subgrantees additional funding to increase their capacity to address the unique needs of homeless children and youth due to the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. And subgrantees can do this by hiring additional staff, dedicating resources, building partnerships with community-based organizations and other strategies, by implementing their data-driven plan that facilitates identification, enrollment, and wraparound services. And we wanted to share that when we talk about wraparound services, that is both academic and basic needs, and also by providing academic strategies to assist with dropout recovery, academic progress monitoring, and summer programs resulting in increased academic achievement. Wanted to share that we were able to have a couple of coffee chats this week with our subgrantees. And so we had some great dialogue, some feedback, some sharing and brainstorming of ideas of what other subgrantees are utilizing their funds. So we wanted to thank all our subgrantees that are out in the audience today for all the wonderful work that you do in serving our students and families. Now, for those of you who do not have a competitive grant or a supplemental grant, we'll be talking about some additional grant opportunities shortly. But next, the remaining allocation for our statewide activities under the phase 1 went to our ESCs. So currently we have an ESC capacity building grant with all 20 of our ESCs, and we provided an ARP Homeless 1 ESC capacity building supplemental grant. So we allocated $3 million. All 20 of our ESCs were eligible, and they will be receiving an additional grant of $150,000 for the 3-year grant period. And this is also a one-time application, one-time NOGA. And so as part of that grant, here on our next slide, we wanted to share the purpose of the supplemental ESC capacity building grant. And that includes providing ESCs with additional funding to assist the agency with regional and local technical assistance, professional development, capacity building, community stakeholder engagement activities, and dissemination of materials. So the data that we shared earlier and the data reports that we have been providing to the ESCs is to assist them in developing a data-driven plan to support all the LEAs within their region with identification, enrollment, and wraparound services for our students experiencing homelessness. Also developing partnerships with regional community-based organizations and providing training, which will share academic strategies to assist with early interventions, ongoing progress monitoring to help support increased academic achievement. As a quick reminder, we just wanted to share a screenshot of our webpage. So part of the ESC Capacity Building Grant and Supplemental Grant, our regional McKinney-Vento liaisons are our first point of contact for technical assistance. And so you can always go to our webpage to see who is your regional McKinney-Vento liaison and their contact information. Next slide, please. So now we're going to go ahead and talk about the American Rescue Plan Homeless Children and Youth Phase 2 grant funds. So in Phase 2, we received over $61 million, and USDE did require that a minimum of 75% of these funds be made available for LEA grants. We have gone above and beyond of this requirement and have allocated 90% of our ARP Homeless 2 funds, which is $55 million for this e-grant opportunity. Here on this next slide, you'll see that the funding is also to address the unique needs of homeless children and youth due to the impact of COVID-19. I am excited to announce that we are in the final stages of developing and releasing our first ever McKinney-Vento e-grant application. Our anticipated grant posting date is Friday, February 25th. Eligible applicants are LEAs and ESCs, and when we indicate LEAs, that is school districts and open enrollment charter schools. LEAs are eligible to apply for an individual grant if their ARP Homeless 2 allocation is at least $5,000. If an LEA's allocation is below the $5,000 threshold, they would need to join an SSA. And then here on the next slide, we give a little more detail. So LEAs, again, can apply individually or as an SSA member. Now, we have gotten questions saying, well, what if our entitlement is above $5,000, but we still want to be part of an SSA? Do we have that opportunity? And yes, you do. So LEAs and ESCs will need to complete an application designation and certification form. And so our anticipated release date for the ADC window for LEAs will open on Friday, February 25th. And this is also the anticipated date to also open the e-grant application. When the e-grant application and ADC window opens, our program guidelines will also be available, a sample application and the entitlement list will also all be posted on the TEA grants opportunities page. So many of you have asked, when will we be able to see the entitlement list? And it'll be posted on the anticipated date of February 25th on the grants opportunities page. And on slide 27, we, if you have not signed up for our McKinney-Vento newsletter, we highly encourage you to do that, because on slide 27 is how we will be communicating our ARP Homeless 2 grant webinar. It'll be early in March. We're in the process of finalizing that date. We are excited to share that in collaboration with our grants department at TEA, we will be providing this training. So our grants department is going to come in for the first part of the training and provide training about the e-grant system, navigating the e-grant system, the ADC form, and how to complete the budget tables and some additional information. And then the second part of the training will be program specific, in which we would go over the program guidelines, the allowable use of funds, and also the activities. So we anticipate this being a 2-hour webinar. It'll be early March. We're in the process of finalizing these dates. And so please sign up for our McKinney-Vento newsletter, because that's how we will be announcing the webinar. And again, we just want to reiterate, if you have historically not applied for our McKinney-Vento competitive grant, please strongly consider applying for our ARP Homeless 2 grant. It is not a competitive grant. This is a grant that is open to all districts. How you apply is determined by your threshold. It is in the e-grant system to help provide the ease of applying and negotiating and providing that NOGA as quickly as possible. And so there are several activities, and as part of that, you are not required to do every activity listed in the application. LEAs and ESCs who provide shared service arrangements will have the autonomy to go ahead and indicate which activities and for the time frame during the 3-year grant period that they would provide, that they are requesting funds to provide those services. So we're really excited to share more information, and we hope to see you at our future and upcoming webinars. Jordan, do we have any questions?
We do have a couple of questions. Let's see. So for those that have submitted the ARP 1, will the negotiations begin prior to the deadline?
Yes. So once you have, for those who have submitted their ARP Homeless 1 supplemental grant, once you have submitted, it is placed in the queue for negotiation, and it is negotiated as it is received. So yes, the negotiations can occur or start prior to the deadline.
We have someone who is having issues with the ARP 1 application. They said the numbers aren't populating on the summary spreadsheet, and how would we correct this issue, or who should we reach out to?
So you can reach out to the grant help desk. Usually that if it's not auto-populating on your budget summary, I would encourage you to go back onto the grants opportunities page and re-download the budget workbook and try reworking with that again.
Are there homeless liaisons required at high school and college levels, or just high school?
So McKinney-Vento liaisons are a designated staff member, LEA staff member is required to be a McKinney-Vento liaison for the district, for school districts.
We have a question. They said the chart showing the number of homeless students by region varied drastically.
Mm-hmm.
Am I understanding correctly that all of the regions received the same amount of funding for the ARP Homeless 1 grant?
So the identification can vary by region based on the overall population of the region. And so that was just a snapshot of the identification. And so identification varies across the state. There are a majority of our regions have a lot of small and rural schools. And so that total enrollment compared to the total identification, yes, can vary. Regarding the funding for the capacity building grant, yes, each ESC does receive the same amount across the state to provide additional technical assistance training and to assist the agency with the implementation of our statewide program.
If a district doesn't currently have the ARP 1 grant, would they need to join an SSA to apply for the ARP 2 grant?
So the ARP Homeless 1 grant was only the only eligible districts for those that had a competitive grant. So again, ARP Homeless 1, the only eligible districts for those who are new subgrantees for the 21-22 competitive grant cycle. If you are a district that currently has not applied for a McKinney-Vento grant, you do have the option to apply individually or as part of an SSA. And that's also partly determined by your entitlement amount, which will be released when the application opens. And then if you're above a $5,000 threshold, you can apply individually. If you are below the $5,000 threshold, you would need to join a shared service arrangement. But again, if you are above that amount, you could join a shared service arrangement.
We got a question about how we can sign up for the newsletter. So I did post a link for you to do that. So that's in the chat available to you now. Another question, how will the ARP application be updated to reflect the extension date?
No. So the application will not reflect the extension date, but when you do go to the TEA grants opportunities page under the critical dates, it does now reflect the February 16th date.
Is McKinney-Vento transportation still 10 days? Is 10 days still the maximum amount of days to get it arranged among districts?
Yeah, so we would, if whomever dropped that in the chat, we can go ahead and reach out with you to go ahead and staff your question a little more. We would need a little more information to move forward with that.
Do we know the amounts for the ARP Phase 2 grants that will be released on February 25th?
So the funding amounts will be released on Friday, February 25th. They will be posted on the grants opportunities page.
One last question. Have negotiations already started? I think that was a follow-up to the negotiation question earlier.
Yes, I believe that there are, for some grants that have already been submitted, there are negotiations already in process.
Okay, that's all the questions.
Okay, thank you, Jordan.
Yeah.
Now we'll talk about foster care and student success updates. So on this chart, I want to talk to you, last time I talked to you about data. So I want to encourage you to build your data. Are you choosing, are you influencing your data, and how is it influencing your campus? So what we did here was provided you with 2020 and 2021 data by region of students who were in foster care. And this is LEA guided data. So this is what school districts reported that of the students you had in foster care by region. So look at that, what you have now compared to 2021-2022 school year. And I want you to gauge that information and what can you do to help those students, and also look at your graduation rates. Also look at how are you building your systems for your foster care students and what are you doing with them. So data should help you, encourage you to build your systems that you have within your district. Next, I want to talk to you about the Foster Care and Student Success Guide. So this is the new Foster Care and Student Success Guide. This is a picture of the new guide, and it is a tri-agency effort. So along with the Texas Education Agency, the Texas Department of Families and Protective Services, and also the Children's Commission have put together this great resource. It is forthcoming. So you should be seeing this resource put out soon. So the goals for this guide is to provide educators with useful information that will guide them in creating a positive education experience for our students in foster care. Also to familiarize educators with the complexities of the foster care system and the relevant laws and policies that influence the educational experience of students in foster care. And finally, to centralize foster care and education information while increasing awareness and promoting improved cross-system supports, practices, and partnerships that benefit students in Texas foster care system. So this will be forthcoming. Please make sure you sign up for all our newsletters and all of our listservs, because that's how we're going to let you know that it is put out. We will have a big promotional for this guide because it has a lot of great information, a lot of great updated information for you to use. Next, we will be providing training opportunities to understand the guide. So once we have it out, Foster Care Guide Overview, we will provide information on how to actually use the Foster Care Guide. So our first one will be an overview, which will happen on February 18th, 2022. And then we will digest all of the guide by chapters. So chapter 1 through 3, we will have a specialized training just for those chapters on March 25th, 2022. And also for chapters 4 through 5, we will have an actual training opportunity April 29, 2022. And all of these sessions will begin at 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. and it will be a webinar. So please feel free to place these dates on your calendars. For all of those who are working with students in foster care, this information will be valuable so they can learn about the policies, procedures, any educational information about foster care, because this guide will be very useful. Next, I wanted to talk about tuition and fee waiver. Coming on this time of the year, working with our students in foster care, we want to make sure we provide them with all the benefits that they have. So the tuition and fee waiver, this is a state law that exempts or waives payment of tuition and fees at state-supported colleges or universities for foster youth currently or formerly in the conservatorship of the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services, and for those adopted from DFPS. So we want to ensure that you know who to contact and who is eligible for this, for the tuition and fee waiver. So make sure you contact your regional adoption staff, and we provided you with this information in our resource list. Also contact your preparation for adult living, your PAL statewide staff. And then we also provided you with the 800 number that you may also call. So we want you also to note that a student must enroll in a Texas state supported or college university before the age of 25 to actually activate this lifetime tuition and fee waiver. So we want to ensure that you understand the information that you are providing to your students. So this is the actual process for the tuition and fee waiver. We want to show you this so you can show your students so that once they start one part of the process, it has a whole nother level to it, that it just does not happen overnight. So we want to make sure that you see that if eligibility for youth or young adults are identified. So once they are identified, the PAL staff obtains a supervisor approved for housing and tuition fee waiver letter. They receive that waiver letter, and then they send that waiver letter to the actual young adult, the youth who are applying. And then they must apply for an actual state and obtain admission to the state college. And then once the youth is accepted, then they make sure they have their classes, and they also submit a copy of the letter to their financial aid or their registrar. They upload that information, the college codes that student within the system, and then the waiver is applied. So make sure you go over all this information. This source is from the Texas Children's Commission, to where you can able to go on and get this actual page for yourself and have this once you're talking your student through this information. So this is great information to have. So now we want to pause for any questions at this time.
Okay, so we have a question here from Susan. She asked, I know there are foster care liaisons for both high school and college levels that are required by Texas Senate bills. Do you know who updates these lists for contact information?
It is the colleges that are updating their lists. You also can check with their admissions department to see who that contact is for that college.
Will the foster care guide webinars be recorded for those of us that cannot attend live?
Yes, they will be recorded for you and posted on our website where the webinars are.
We have a question about the eligibility timeframe. What is the eligibility timeframe for students formerly in foster care? I'm not sure what that's in reference to.
I want to say when the student is identified, and usually they have, that's why we encourage everyone, once you receive that student, to properly identify them as foster care, because you can have those student records and you go back through those student records. So within the foster care guide, I want to say, it shows you how the process to go through it, and we can provide you with more information on that actual age.
I think we got to follow up there. That's eligibility for tuition and fee waivers.
At 25, they need to be enrolled or take a college course before the age of 25 for the actual tuition waiver to commence.
Perfect. Are there any resources available for those that don't try to go to school until after they're 25? Is there an appeals process?
that I'm not sure about an appeals process there, but they have that right all the way to up to age 25. So that's why we encourage you to speak to your students who are in foster care. Also in college, they have that information for foster care liaison in colleges. So please provide your students or let your students know about that information.
How will the LEA foster care liaisons receive notification of the foster care training, the foster care guide training?
Please make sure you sign up for the foster care newsletter, also the highly mobile and at-risk newsletter. Please sign up for those in the listserv.
We got a request for someone to put the tuition and fee waiver process in the chat.
It should be on the list, the reference list.
Okay, yeah, the Texas Children's Commission resource. It is on the list. So if you go into the chat and click on the resource list link that I posted, you should be able to find it there. Does the foster care liaison write the waiver letter?
You do not write the waiver letter. You are going to have the student contact the PALs, and they are confirming eligibility. So you are making sure that you have your student reach out to the ones who can confirm their eligibility. Please review the forms and the information and the actual list to walk you through. It walks you through every single question that you may have and also that the student may have.
Yeah, okay, so there are a lot more questions about the fee waiver that we can, do you want to follow up with that later, or do you want to keep answering?
We can follow up with that later.
Okay.
And also provide you with information, because I feel like we have the actual contacts and information for you. Please look at the resource page, because we make sure we have the PALS contact, the staff contact. That information is there for you, with the website to get all of that information, and also DFPS information about the tuition and fee waiver. So if you have any other information or any other questions, please feel free to email foster care liaison at tea.texas.gov.
Do we want to continue on, or?
Yes, we're moving on. Okay. What's the next section? Our next section is at-risk awareness and updates. So I want to provide you with some at-risk and updates. Our child abuse and prevention toolkit. So this is a great toolkit that was TEA partnered with the Children's Advocacy Center, CAC of Texas, to develop a toolkit for educators addressing child abuse identification and reporting responsibilities in person and remotely. So this guide will ensure to help you, speaks about the signs and abuse of neglect or trafficking of students. So this provides you with resources for your campuses. So you can use this toolkit as a training guide for your campuses on what to do, how to do it, and any other, speaking about signs of abuse or neglect, and showing your staff what they need to do to protect our students. Also, the No Go Tell posters. These posters were mandated by Texas Education and to promote, to understand how our children can be safe. So it's okay to tell if someone hurts you. We want to ensure our students are safe. So these posters, the child abuse hotline, in English and in Spanish on your campuses. This is what the law requires. Also posted in high traffic areas, such as hallways, water fountains, or the counselor's office. And then also post this at student eye level, so where they understand and can read the information and seek help if needed. Next, we wanted to provide you with some ways to connect with your at-risk students. So we want you to show that someone is listening, to show that you care. Be available for the students if they need to talk. If you know a student who would benefit from mentoring environment, or recommend them to different programs in schools, if you know students who have things that they like to do. Try to show them the way and provide them with that information on things that they can do on campus that can help them out. We want to provide that listening ear for that student. Also, we want to show and build trust through honesty. Be honest with the students. Show the students that you value their opinion. Listen to them. Be honest with them. Communication that is honest and kind will be the most valuable to build a trusted relationship with students. And then also provide support. We are here to support you as you support your students. So build moments of opportunities to speak with the students and show them resources to help them be successful. So these are also some resources to support our students: Student Success Initiative, community partnerships. This is support improvements in educational and developmental outcomes for children and youth who live in struggling communities by providing access to great schools and access to a system of high quality community, academic, and government resources from birth to college and career. So this website is a very helpful website to helping children all the way in elementary school to all the way to college. Also, the at-risk youth programs. It's in an online educational hub for parents of youth ages 12 to 17 who are troubled and currently facing difficulties in making the right decisions. So the goal is to spread greater awareness among parents and society at large on the availability of therapeutic placements that are catered to the unique needs of each child. And then youth.gov engages youth to promote change, implement evidence-based and innovative programs to reach youth and locate funding in your community. So you can use youth.gov to find more educational programs for your school and the community. And then supports for students considered at risk. This is an article that helps you build more for your toolbox in supporting your at-risk students. So this is a great way to read up on what are some interesting things others are doing to support their students who are at risk. So we'll pause for any questions at this time.
Okay, so one question: can we order the no-go tell posters from the highly mobile and at-risk office?
At this time, we are not taking orders for the posters. We have them online for downloading and printing.
With the move to parental permission prior to talking to students about child abuse and sex trafficking, does the toolkit review this requirement?
The toolkit came out before that requirement, so it is not listed in that requirement. That information is not listed in there.
Do you know if there are any in-home therapeutic services for troubled youth?
You can send that question to the inbox and we can research that and help you out with that.
Okay, that's it for the at-risk questions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all for being with us. We're just going to close out today's presentation with some general updates. Just wanted to remind you that our last highly mobile webinar of this school year will be on March 31st from 1 o'clock to 2:30, so save that time spot. Also, as Khaled mentioned, we have the ARP Homeless 2 e-grant webinar that's going to be in early March. So more information on that will be forthcoming. Make sure that you're signed up for the McKinney-Vento listserv so that you receive that information. Additionally, as LaTrenda mentioned, we are going to be providing training on the foster care guide. That first training on February 18th will be an overview of the resource. And then March 25th and March 29th from 10 to 11:30, we'll start to walk you through chapter by chapter. And that's just what we have scheduled for right now. And then we'll be scheduling out more trainings to come with walking folks through that foster care guide. Also, just as we are getting ready to close up today, wanted to remind everybody that it is Human Trafficking Prevention Month. So here at TEA, we did participate. We had communications coming out from the agency. We worked with our agency partners as well to promote Go Blue Day, as well as some other aspects of human trafficking prevention. So as we're closing up this month of January, if there's anything that you could do within your district to promote trafficking and just to increase awareness about our students and kids being at risk of trafficking, taking, and we highly encourage and recommend for you to do that. Also, just a reminder, the important role that you play as an educator, as a mandatory reporter, when you are seeing these things and making those reports, you are essential to our children's safety. It is also National Mentoring Month. So for those of you that are mentoring kids every day in your schools, which you are, thank you for being a mentor. Thank you for being an advocate. Thank you for being a leader for students. For those of you that run specific mentoring programs, thank you for the work that you do. We celebrate you this month. And then just some reminders about where you can find our information. So on TEA's homepage, you'll go to academics. Under academics, you will click on special student populations. We're right there in the middle of the pack, highly mobile and at-risk students. This will take you to our page where you can find our information. As Jordan mentioned, all of our webinars and trainings are posted, as well as our newsletters and resources and tools that our division has created. Each individual program leader has mentioned their inboxes, but just wanted to remind you that we do have a number of individual individual email inboxes for any questions that you have. We look forward to working with you, speaking with you, and answering your questions. And to sign up for our listserv, you can do that via TEA's homepage. You can also do it by taking a picture of the QR code that's on the screen, and that'll direct you to how to sign up for not only our division quarterly newsletters, which we will have one coming out next month, but also our individual programs as well. So you sign up for updates, and then you can select the different ones that you want to sign up for. And then just as we're wrapping up, we always appreciate your feedback. And so on the left, please take a screenshot of that QR code. It allows you to provide us opportunities on the information, the resources, anything that you'd like to hear, any feedback that you have about today. And then as we mentioned, those updates, you can take a screenshot and sign up for those updates. So I know that we have a little extra time before we wrap up. So I'm wondering if there's any final questions that folks have.
We did receive a couple of questions about when the PowerPoint was going to be posted and when the recording was going to be posted. So that'll be available next week, and it'll be on the highly mobile and at-risk webinars page. So if you go to our main web page, you can find it located on, there's a webinars button that you can click, and that'll be posted next week, available. The recording, presentation, Q&A as well will also be there. Kelly, I don't know if you want to go back into some previous questions that we had from other sections. We haven't received any in regards to the closing. So what's your plan?
I know we have a couple extra minutes, so if there's any questions with ease that we could answer, I think we could use the time.
We got a question about the child abuse training. So can you review the requirement to seek parent permission before talking about child abuse?
That's a great question. I would say that we'll need to provide you more information at a future training on the specific nuances. There was a lot of changes that came out with the 87th session related to Senate Bill 9. The agency is working on an FAQ guidance that's actually being handled in a different part of the agency. But once we have more specifics concerning that information, we'll make sure to share those updates with you, or have potentially that person in the agency who's the expert on that specific piece come and provide some information here.
We have a question about the foster care guide. When will it be available to us in Texas?
Yeah, such a great question. So we are just wrapping up some final things that have come up with getting the guide posted, but we would anticipate in the next few weeks that it will be posted. It will certainly be posted before the February 18th training.
Does this team support SCE at-risk compliance?
We do not specifically support at-risk compliance. We really provide more programmatic information, but are not working on the compliance end. That's a different part of the agency.
Is there any additional training available to better understand UHY and runaway students?
UHY, is that unaccompanied homeless youth?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cal, do you want to go ahead and share about the trainings that we have available?
Yes, we don't have specifically a training regarding runaway unaccompanied homeless youth, but we are in the process right now of developing our McKinney-Vento 201, and so it'll go more in depth to identification, enrollment, and some and additional services, including how to help support our unaccompanied youth. But we can, whomever asked that question will follow up with you and provide you some runaway homeless youth resources that we can share with you that may assist you.
We had another question about McKinney-Vento. Are there any resources for outside counseling services for our students who are McKinney-Vento or at risk?
So regarding outside counseling services, that's something that's specific to each area. And so I would highly encourage whomever asked that question to go to their regional McKinney-Vento liaison website page. They should have a listing of local resources and may be able to direct you on some local counseling supports.
Can you please advise if this training will qualify for CEU hours?
We do not provide CEU hours for our quarterly presentations.
When there is a runaway foster child, does the caseworker follow up to look for the student?
That is I would say, more of a specific nuanced question. Within the department, DFPS, they have certain processes that they have to follow when there's a runaway foster youth and certain notifications. I'm not aware of the particulars of that process, but that is definitely something that I'm working with your DFPS locally, and your point of contact with the agency would be really helpful to understand how runaways are handled within your respective community. Thanks for that question.
We got a question about posting, if we could post the regional McKinney-Vento contacts again. I believe that's located on the McKinney-Vento webpage.
Yes, that's correct. It's on the McKinney-Vento webpage, and we can drop that link. I'll drop that link here in the chat.
Okay.
Perfect.
A couple more questions about foster care and runaways. Do we want to follow up now, or?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and send those questions to us so that we can follow up with DFPS and follow up with you who's asking that question and give you more specific information. I'd like to do a little bit of a deeper dive on that. And you can send the question to our foster care liaison inbox, and then we can follow up specifically on the situation.
Yeah, and that goes for any specific situations. I see another specific situation about a homeless student. So definitely feel free to send those to our inboxes. I don't know, Kelly, if you want to go back to the slide where we have our mailboxes listed.
Great idea. Here you go, everybody.
Yeah.
So we're happy to staff questions with you and to walk through specifics, but definitely reach out to us on our individual program listservs, and then we'll follow up with you specifically. Great. Well, you guys, thank you so much again for joining us on this Thursday afternoon. Thank you for the important work that you do. We look forward to hearing from you. We wish you well as you start this new 22 year. Thank you for the way you pour yourself out for our kids and for our families every single day. You are our heroes, and it's an honor to have time with you today. If you need anything at all, don't hesitate to reach out. And we look forward to being in touch with you in the future. Thanks, everybody.